Here in today's text, Maitreya Rishi is giving a practical example that how this has happened in the life of Maharaj Dhruva, practically. How Maharaj Dhruva was able to come out from Mrityupasa Vishatanim. He was able to come out of the cycles of birth and death. How was it possible? Because he had heard from great sage Harer Katha, he had heard Krishna Katha from another great sage, Narad Muni. So that example is being given here. Yaya Uttan Padaha Putro. Just like the son of Uttanpad, Uttanpadaha Putro means the son of Uttanpad, that means Maharaj Dhruva. Munina Gitaya Arbhakaha. Even though he was a child, he heard Munina from great sage Narad Muni. Gitaya means being sung. The glories of the Lord was sung to him by great sage, narrated to him by great sage Narad Muni. And then, what happened after he heard? When Dhruva Maharaj heard from Narad Muni, what did he do? He followed the directions given by Narad Muni. What he should be doing, what he should not be doing. He followed whatever prescription was given by Narad Muni. And he was very determined to follow the rules and regulation given by Narad Muni. So first of all, he had strong faith in the words of his spiritual master, and with a lot of determination he followed the instructions of Narad Muni, and thus within 6 months he was able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. And then after seeing the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj recites very wonderful prayers that is known as prayers of Maharaj Dhruva. The Lord touched the head of Dhruva Maharaj with his conch shell, and then very wonderful prayers were recited by Maharaj Dhruva. Then later on, Dhruva Maharaj returned back because he had a desire. He had wanted something material. He wanted a kingdom superior than his father. So anyway, and he had said that I wanted a kingdom, he wanted a kingdom more superior than anyone, even his grandfather. So we all know that Dhruva Maharaj in the lineage, finally everybody's grandfather in that sense is Brahma. He wanted a kingdom more superior than Brahma, which was not possible, isn't it? But finally we find that even though he returned back from the forest after meeting the Lord, after realizing the Lord, and he once again ruled the kingdom. So his father gave him the kingdom to rule over. Later on, after ruling over the kingdom for many, many years, he had children, all those things, but he was still a young person. And then finally, he retired, and once again, during the end of his life, when he meditated on the Lord, he was received, as it is said here, that Dhruva Maharaj. So what happened when he was just about to leave this world, he was about to quit this body, this is explained here. What happened? Mrityuhu kritveva murdhani angrim. Because in the material world, if something is born, it is destined to die. Correct? This is a nature of this material world. Whatever has taken birth is sure to die. And generally, whatever dies is sure to take birth again. There is no one practically it is said, just like Prabhupada says, as sure as death. Correct? Everyone has to meet death. So here we are seeing that Dhruva Maharaj, he did not meet death. Rather, Prabhupada explains elsewhere, death came to Dhruva Maharaj to offer obeisances and take blessings from Dhruva Maharaj. So death did come to Dhruva Maharaj. It came near to Dhruva Maharaj. So we can see here, Mrityuho Kritveva Murdhani Anghrim. It came with its head bowed down. Murdhani means with his head bowed before Maharaj Dhruva to take his blessings, and received Anghrim and received the feet of Maharaj Dhruva. So Prabhupada translates, he ascended the abode of the Lord, placing his feet over the head of death. You see, generally death places its feet over our head. That is how we leave this world. When we quit this world, death overpowers us, places its feet, tramples us practically, and then we have to surrender to death. Whole life when we are there, we are all like a boss. Where is God? Who is God? And finally, we become meek and humble before death. In the form of death, Krishna himself says actually that is one of the form of the Lord. Kalosmi mrityu sarva harascha aham. Isn't it? Actually, nobody can avoid the Lord. Nobody can avoid surrendering to the Lord. So, two kinds of surrender is possible. One is, if we lovingly surrender to the Lord, then we will be able to see a very, very wonderful, beautiful form of the Lord while quitting this world. Otherwise, if we don't surrender to the loving form of the Lord, we will still have to see and surrender to the ghastly form of the Lord. See? So, that is Kala in the form of death. Mrityu sarva harascha aham. At the point of Krishna is saying aham. In the form of death, I take away everything from that living entity. So that living entity has to completely surrender to the Lord in that ghastly form. So here, generally we find that death overtakes us and tramples us, and we have to give up everything at the point of death. But here we are seeing Dhruva Maharaj not caring for death. He trampled over, he put his feet over the head of death and straight away walked into the airplane, spiritual airplane, to go back to Godhead. You see, by hearing these topics from great sage Narada, the son of King Uttanpada Dhruva was enlightened regarding the personality of Godhead, and he ascended to the abode of the Lord, placing his feet over the head of death. So, here we are seeing in the purport, Prabhupada explains very nicely, when Maharaj Dhruva was quitting his body, when he was ready to quit his body, he was met by great personalities like Nanda and Sunanda. They are the associates of the Lord in Vaikuntha planet. So when he was about to quit this body, immediately he saw the plane descended, and from the plane came out very, very brilliant personalities, Nanda and Sunanda, the associates of the Lord. And Bhagavatam explains, there is a chapter in the 4th canto, Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. How he goes back to Godhead is very beautifully explained there. And when he was traveling from this earthly planet to Vaikuntha Loka, what all he saw, all those things are explained. And then he goes back to Godhead, and then explanation of Vaikuntha Loka is also given. So that's a very beautiful description in the 4th canto, which after 3rd canto we will be able to see. Here we are seeing it in very short, it is described. So there it is described that when Maharaj Dhruva was about to give up his body, then the airplane of the Lord landed from the Vaikuntha planet, and that airplane was also spiritual. All the paraphernalia of the Lord are completely spiritual. So it was not of this material world, nor with material eyes anyone would be able to see that spiritual plane or the spiritual personality like Nanda and Sunanda. So then they came down from that plane, and very, very lovingly they received Dhruva Maharaj. So at that time it is described that death was just awaiting him. Because material world means death is a servant of the Lord. In one form, the Supreme Lord himself awaits the living entity in the form of death. So as a material Lord, death was awaiting there. But then, by the arrangement of the Lord, the spiritual plane descended there, and Nanda and Sunanda welcomed Dhruva Maharaj in the plane. So there it is described that actually the death itself bowed down its head to Dhruva Maharaj, and then Dhruva Maharaj very kindly placed his feet over the head of death in that sense. So that means the death cannot overcome a devotee of the Lord. By the arrangement of the Lord, in the very self-same body which he was about to quit, somehow by the arrangement of the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj did not have to quit this body. And it is explained there that his body also became completely effulgent. The material body became completely spiritualized. And then in that body he boarded that spiritual plane and then went back to Godhead. So how was this possible? It was possible by hearing Krishna Katha, because he was trained from the very beginning by the mercy of Narad Muni, by a great sage Narad Muni. So what is the effect of hearing Krishna Katha? That is being explained here with practical example of Maharaj Dhruva. That how he was able to conquer over death because of hearing from great sage like Narad Muni. That is being explained here. So actually, this is the most important goal of life. Prabhupada used to say from one Bengali, there is a proverb, sadhana kara, bhajana kara, mrityu jaan le bhaya. Whatever sadhana you are doing, whatever chanting you are doing, whatever hearing you are doing, finally it will be tested at the point of death. How much you have become Krishna conscious will be tested at the point of death. So it's a very important thing. Generally, how much we have studied, what learning we have done, there is a test available to make us to understand how much learning we have done. Isn't it? So similarly, how much we have become Krishna conscious is actually tested at the point of death. That is where we will come to know whether actually we have become Krishna conscious or not. That's why we find in Bhagavatam, from the very beginning itself, Maharaj Parikshit, the whole Bhagavatam rotates, evolves at the point where Maharaj Parikshit is cursed to die within 7 days. And how he is preparing for death, how he is giving us a practical lesson, how to prepare for death, is very important. And that is when for continuously 7 days he is hearing Krishna Katha from Shukadeva Goswami. So, Prabhupada used to say, just like nowadays we are having some many organizations. One of the organization is Art of Living. So that is very good, how to live. But more important than that is art of dying. Not only art of living, how to survive, how to live in this world, how to quit this body is very, very important. If we lead our life like cats and dogs and try to enjoy sense gratification and then die like cats and dogs, Vedic literature points out, actually we are defeated. If we give up this body without being Krishna conscious, all our endeavors are defeated. And if we can quit this body with Krishna consciousness, then whatever endeavor we have done is actually completely successful. That is the perfection of our life. So, in Bhagavad Gita, in the very introduction itself, Prabhupada explains this, that Lord Krishna has dedicated one complete chapter, 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, on how to quit this body in Krishna consciousness. Very essential. So there, Krishna explains in varieties of ways that how the great yogis, they choose their time to quit this body. If somebody quits in Dakshinayana, what happens? If somebody quits in Uttarayana, then what is his destination? All those things are very elaborately described in 8th chapter. But then, for a devotee, Krishna describes, it does not matter in which time he quits his body. If the devotee quits his body, remembering the Supreme Lord, he will attain spiritual destination. He will go back to Godhead. So, very much in the introduction itself, Prabhupada explains this very nicely. So, Prabhupada says, first Krishna describes many different, heavenly planets, destination to heavenly planets. Yanti Devan, Vrita Devan, whatever, if somebody is worshipping some kind of demigods, he can definitely attain to that heavenly planet of that Devata. But then, later on, Krishna explains, what is the use of going to all these different planets, heavenly planets? Because in none of these planets, one can attain spiritual life. One can attain eternal life. There is no possibility. So wherever he may go, Brahma Bhuvanan Loka, up to Brahma Loka, even if the living entity travels even up to Brahma Loka, Punar Avartini Arjuna, he has to come back to this material world. So first Krishna describes that one can worship any of the demigods, he can reach to the planets of the demigods, but then Krishna also describes that it is futile attempt. What is the use of going there? Because factually you'll have to come back to this Mrityu Lokam Vishanti. You have to come back to this Mrityu Lokam. So there is no use in that. Then Krishna starts explaining that there is a spiritual world which is far beyond this material world. And Prabhupada explains that from 15th chapter, description is given about spiritual world. So there, Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakha Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Pranani Yastam Veda Savedavid. There is a banyan tree which has its root upward and its branches down, and the Vedic hymns are its leaf. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So Prabhupada is explaining this material world is described as the reflection of that spiritual reality. And then further the Lord says, Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivrita kamaha dvandir vimuktaha sukha dukkhas samagner gachanti amudaha padam avyayam tat. So that padam avyayam, the eternal kingdom of the Lord, which we are seeing, which Dhruva Maharaj was ascending to, he was going to, Prabhupada explains from Bhagavad Gita, how this is possible. So in Bhagavad Gita, the qualification to attain that Padam Avyayam is explained as Nirmana Moha. Who is qualified to go to that spiritual world? In this material world, even up to Brahma Loka we can go. If we do some kind of punya, some kind of pious activities, if we do, we can travel up to Brahma Loka. All heavenly planets we can see. But if we want to enter into the spiritual world, like Dhruva Maharaj entered with the self-same body, then it is possible only when we are completely free from moha. Nirmana moha. So Prabhupada explains what does that means. So he says, we are after designations. Someone wants to become a son, someone wants to become a lord, someone wants to become president, rich man, king, something else. As long as we are attached to these designations, we are attached to body, because designations belong to the body. So, Nirmana Moha means completely give up all attachment, moha to this body, to anything material. So when we are attached to these different designations, actually shows we are attached to this material body. Why? Because this body is, we are thinking it is me, right? So we are completely materially attached. As long as we are attached to this designation, we are attached to the body, because designations belong to the body. But we are not these bodies. Realizing this is the first stage in spiritual realization. We are associated with the three modes of material nature, but we must become detached through devotional service of the Lord. So we have to become detached. That is the first qualification required to enter into the spiritual world. Then Prabhupada explains, just becoming detached is not enough. If we say that we have become detached, even the Mayavadis also become, even they also become detached from this materialistic world. But that is not enough. By becoming detached, they may rise up to the point of Brahma Jyoti, which is also part of spiritual sky. But it's a temporary destination. If they don't become attached to the Supreme Lord, once again they will fall down to this material world. So then Prabhupada explains, Krishna says, simply detachment is not enough. You have to remember me. Specifically, if you can remember me at the point of death, then your destination is guaranteed. Then our destination is guaranteed. Antakale cha mam eva smaran mukta kalevaram yah prayati samad bhavam yati nasti atra samshayaha. Antakale, at the point of living, quitting this body, if one can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that means he is Krishna conscious at the point of final exam, at the final death, quitting this body. Then Krishna is saying, there is no samshaya, he will come back to me. So Prabhupada translates that. Anyone who quits his body at the end of life, remembering me, attains immediately to my nature, and there is no doubt of this. So, how this is possible? Krishna says, because this is a principle. Somebody may say, okay, if I remember Krishna, I will go back to Krishna. Can I remember something else and still can I go back to Godhead? Can I remember some Devata and I can go back to Godhead? No. So Krishna says, whatever you remember, that kind of consciousness you are going to enter into. That is a principle. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam eveti konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. In whatever condition one quits his present body, in the next life he will attain to that state without fail. So, it's very simple. This is a law. Similarly, if we remember Krishna, in Krishna consciousness, if you quit this body, that state you will attain after death. If you quit this body with the consciousness of animal, we will attain that consciousness. Next body, we will be transferred to animal body. Because that is our consciousness at the point of death. So then what does Krishna advise Arjuna? Is Krishna advising Arjuna, now does not matter, now nothing you have to do. When your death is approaching, at that time somehow you try to remember me. You see, after giving this instruction, what is the instruction Krishna is telling to Arjuna? That is very essential. How to remember Krishna at the point of death, for that, what is the instruction Krishna is saying? So, therefore, Krishna is using the word therefore. Krishna is saying, Tasmat means therefore. So, first Krishna told about, if you remember me, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. If you remember and quit this body, without fail, you will come back to me. And then Krishna is saying, similarly, if anybody else remembers in any other consciousness, if he quits his body, he will attain that kind of consciousness. So then Krishna is giving conclusion, Tasmat, therefore Arjuna, Tasmat, Sarveshu Kaleshu, all the time, Mama Anusmara Yudhyacha. Remember me, and at the same time you perform your duty. So that means mold your life in such a way that whatever duties, anything you are doing, do it with my remembrance. Everything should be directed towards me. So, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha Mayarpita Mano Buddhir Mam Evishyasi Ashamshayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me, and at the same time continue your prescribed duty and fight with your mind and activities fixed on me, everything engaged in me, you will attain to me without any doubt. So, if always, whatever we are doing, if we try to remember Krishna, then Krishna is saying it will be possible at the point of death also we will be able to remember Krishna. Krishna never advised Arjuna somehow or other only at the point of death you try to remember me. No. Krishna is saying, Tasmas Sarveshu Kaleshu, all the time you try to remember me. You see? So then Prabhupada is also saying, this is a practical guidance. Because somebody may think, okay, we are all as a full-time devotees, everything, we are trying to remember at least chanting 16 rounds and from morning to evening. But actually Krishna is giving this guidance for the whole humanity. So somebody may think, I am occupied with my occupation, I have to do my duties. Then what is there for me in this? How will I be able to remember Krishna? So Prabhupada is saying, Krishna has given very practical directions. One doesn't have to give up his occupation. He has to change his consciousness while doing his occupation. That is very important. So Prabhupada is saying here, he does not advise Arjuna to simply remember him and give up his occupation. No, the Lord never suggests anything impractical. In this material world, in order to maintain the body, one has to work. You see. In the human society, whether one is laborer, merchant, warrior, administrator, farmer, even if he belongs to the highest class and is a literary man, scientist, he has to work in order to maintain his existence. The Lord therefore tells Arjuna, he need not give up his occupation. While he is engaged in his occupation, he should remember Krishna. If he does not practice remembering Krishna while he is struggling for existence, then it will not be possible for him to remember Krishna at the time of death. See, so this is very important. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said, Kirtaniya Sadaharihi. Then Prabhupada says, somebody may think how this is possible. You are saying Krishna is giving practical, it is very practical, right? I have to do my duties also and remember Krishna also. How this is practically possible? Somebody may wonder. So Prabhupada is saying, yes, it is possible. The great Acharyas, they have given wonderful example to explain how this is possible. So Prabhupada says, this is possible. The Acharyas give the following example. If a married woman is attached to another man, or if a man has an attachment for a woman other than his wife, then the attachment is to be considered very strong. One with such an attachment is always thinking of a loved one. The wife who is thinking of her lover is always thinking of meeting him, even while she is carrying out her household duties, chores. In fact, she carries out her household work even more carefully, so her husband will not suspect her attachment. Similarly, we should always remember the Supreme Lover, Shri Krishna, and at the same time perform our material duties very nicely. A strong sense of love is required here. If we have a strong sense of love for the Supreme Lord, then we can discharge our duty and at the same time remember Him. You see? But we have to develop that sense of love. Arjuna, for instance, was always thinking of Krishna. He was constant companion of Krishna, and at the same time he was a warrior. Krishna did not advise him to give up the fighting and go to forest to meditate. You see. So, Krishna, Prabhupada is saying, Acharyas have not given something very impractical, it is very, very practical. What most important thing is required is a sense of love we have to develop for the Lord. And how to develop that sense of the Lord, then Prabhupada further explains, this is possible by practicing regulative principles of devotional service. That sense of love will not come immediately, it is not possible. So we have to, just like Prabhupada gives the example, the child, he actually likes to go to school, but in the beginning it is dormant, isn't it? In the beginning he does not like to go. But naturally, even forcefully, if he is sent to the school, then gradually he develops that attraction. So similarly, our attachment now is dormant for Krishna. That attraction will become awakened by following these regulative principles. So Prabhupada says, Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya gamina. By practicing this remembering, without being deviated, thinking ever of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is sure to achieve the planet of the Divine Personality of Godhead, O son of Kunti. So Abhyasa yogena means by practicing devotional service with regulative principles, this attachment to the Supreme Lord will be possible. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।